Hey friends, Leigh Brown here with One Community Real Estate, and welcome back to Real Estate from the Rooftops, which is frankly your newest and best resource for real estate information that won't be super confusing and can actually be interesting and useful in your real estate life. And also, if you happen to be a buyer or seller of real estate, welcome. You'll get all the inside scoop on real estate. Now, I should totally let y'all know that in 2021, and actually right now, because of how years and calendars work, I am the Vice President of Advocacy for the association. So yay, I've got a volunteer job on top of my regular jobs, which means I get to talk to Katie Johnson, who is the Chief Counsel for the National Association of Realtors, on a text basis. Yeah, I'm special, can talk to lawyers by text. But frankly, y'all, that is a wonderful resource for information when you see headlines like DOJ and NAR in settlements. So the DOJ, of course, being the Department of Justice, and NAR being the National Association of Realtors. And just like the journalist in the paper, I shall henceforth refer to them by their acronyms just to keep it light and fresh and fast. So you've seen this headline that says there's been a settlement, lawsuit, and judgments and all this other going on. And you went, oh, what's going on? Okay, so first of all, number one lesson about reading news articles is click on the headline and read the whole article. I know, right? There's some really great information for y'all in there, but because some of y'all didn't read the whole article, that's why you came back here. So the headlines do keep surfacing, and that's because many of our social media networks and news networks like to recycle through anytime y'all click on a headline because they make more money that way. Y'all know how that works. So anyway, what the Department of Justice said is that there has been some obfuscation, AKA opacity, AKA people don't know what's going on when it comes to commission and who pays what to whom and for what. Now, what you should know, first of all, is that I'm in North Carolina. So I'm a North Carolina Realtor and a South Carolina Realtor. Your state may have different agency rules. And so there's agency. One agent works for the buyer. That might be a buyer agent. They have signed a document where the agent and the buyer have discussed the compensation for the agent doing the yeoman's work of representing the buyer in the transaction. Just like when you list a house, you engage a seller's agent or a listing agent, and you sign the paperwork that says who gets paid what and how does the money play out and what are the tasks and roles of being the fiduciary. Some states like Florida have transaction agents, and so it can be different wherever you are. But in general, a person buying a house has a buyer's agent, and the person selling the house has a listing agent or seller's agent. I'll use them interchangeably because I'm a realtor and that's how my people operate. And so what you should know is that there was some evidence, some accusations. There was lots of talk about how buyers didn't know how agents were paid. So the settlement says, hey, y'all, you need to make this evident. So in the settlement, and by the way, NAR does not acknowledge any wrongdoing here because we know how amazing realtor members are and how they explain things to the consumer public. But in an effort to make things easier for the consumer to understand and to generally just make real estate a better operation, the agreement was made to publish compensation. So this means that if you are a realtor and you have put forth compensation to another agent in the multiple listing service, it's going to show up on websites all over the place. Now, let me backtrack that for a second because I just went walk, 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 walk if you're not in the business full time. So if you're a consumer member, you've heard us talk about the MLS in real estate. That's the multiple listing service. The multiple listing service is an agreement to data share and to listing share amongst professional colleagues. In that space, I, Leigh Brown, take a listing. I work with that seller to establish pricing and timing and showings and compensation and all the bits and pieces that go on. And with the seller's permission, I put the house in the multiple listing service, thereby advertising it to other agents. Part of that advertising is saying, hey, if you are a buyer agent, remember our discussion a minute ago? Good job. This is what we're going to pay you. That was determined between me and the seller of the house before we put it in the multiple listing service. Just as I, as a buyer agent, talk to my buyers before we look at houses about how I'm compensated and what comes out of the MLS. So what is agreed there is put forth so that agents can work with each other in cooperation and thereby share compensation. So that number is going to be published on websites. And just so y'all know, it was published in the past and then it went back behind the firewall. Now it's coming out from behind the firewall. It's not like it's any great secret because realtors do this conversation on a daily basis with the people they serve. Now it just means your clients might see it on a website and ask you, hey, how much are you paid on this house? And of course, you'll be honest because you abide by the code of ethics, and that makes you super amazing. It's one of your superpowers. And so when you think about this, part of the conversation is that this could cause negotiation of commission rates. Okay, that's fine. Realtors have been negotiating commission rates since the dawn of time. And in fact, when you look through any MLS, you will see that lots of different houses will pay different amounts based on what they negotiated with their agent. It's all over the place. So one thing that will change is that as an agent, you won't be able to pick and choose houses based on commission dollars. I know y'all weren't doing that anyway because we're in a low inventory environment, and I'm fairly confident that y'all operate in the best possible way, meaning you pull that MLS sheet and you show it to your client and you say, all right, this house is paying me X. All right. And if that's not what y'all agreed, you work it out or you make some kind of a decision. It just means that realtors can't pick and choose what the consumer sees based on commissions. It means the consumer can have the full breadth of what's available within their budget, which is how it should be. So that's one of the things that will change. There is a giant change in this settlement, though, that you'll have to have a conversation with your seller clients. In the multiple listing service, when we agree to work with each other, we work through often the showing instructions through services like centralized showing or showing time so that we can make things convenient for one another as professionals and protect and preserve the safety and well-being of the clients who have entrusted us with their properties for sale. The settlement from the DOJ states that any real estate licensee can access a lockbox, whether or not they're a realtor member of the association or the MLS. Now, just know this is with seller permission. So your job as a realtor is to do what you've always done. Have a conversation with somebody selling a property about how it works. Just make sure to find out if they're comfortable having licensees in the house. If so, then you just make sure that you check their license. That's what I've been doing for years. When we work with foreclosures, you may have somebody who is not a member of the association would call for an appointment. Great. Send me a copy of your pocket card. I can go to the state real estate commission and make sure that their license is active, coordinate with the seller and make sure that they have access. So all this means is that you might have to make an extra phone call, but remember that the number one priority that you have as the fiduciary of that seller is their safety and well-being. So just make sure the license is active, because if the state gives that person a license, then you have an opportunity to cooperate with that person as well. Now, just know that with Supra and CentralLock, if you have one of those fancy electronic lock boxes, you may have to read your instruction manual for how to do the little CBS codes, but that won't take you 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Now, what you want to think about here as well is that a big thing that's got to happen is a better conversation with the public. What do we do as realtors? I find that realtors, by nature of being super optimistic, cheerful, rainbow sunshine people, you like to make things smooth for people and you like to handle all of the trouble all the time, just behind the scenes, get it all handled. Which means that sometimes the consumer public doesn't know how hard you work. They don't understand that you're working 12 and 14 and 16-hour days. And in a low inventory environment, you may have to write 5, 10, and 12 offers before that buyer gets a hold of a property that makes sense for their needs and their budget. You need to let people know how hard you work, friends. Make sure that when you're explaining what you're going to do as their fiduciary, we know that the fiduciary responsibilities include skill, care, and diligence, and looking out for their best interest in the transaction. It also means you're going to work really hard and you're going to guide them through any of the problems that come up in the process. And we never know what problems are going to come up, which is why some of y'all chose real estate, because it's different every day. So with that being said, your buyers need to see your value. That means that when you're doing advertising for buyers and you're letting them know that you operate in that capacity, you really don't want to tell people you work for free because you're paid. So just take a look at your advertising and make sure that you are putting forth a fantastic message that allows the consumer public to understand what a professional realtor means to them in their real estate life. And we do this really well with sellers, friends. Buyers need to understand it too, although frankly, in this current environment, they're seeing how hard you do work and they know how important you are when it comes to situations like polybutylene pipes and survey encroachments and just things that you'd never see coming until you're there to provide professional guidance to that consumer. Remember that the best realtors are doing the things that websites and AI and AR just aren't equipped to do, because we're there to troubleshoot. We're there to ask questions and find solutions to make the real estate transaction better for every neighbor in our communities. Because as realtors, we know that real estate is the cornerstone of the American dream. It is the first step to a financially free future for the neighbors in our communities. And our job is to make sure that they know as much as possible about the process, which actually makes you more valuable in that little process. So I'll tell you that if you're a realtor member and you have questions about this, what you want to do is reach out to the members of the National Association Board of Directors in your state or in your region. Because with this settlement from the DOJ, the NAR Board of Directors will have to have a meeting to discuss how this is going to play out, how we're going to approach it in bylaws and in practice, and how we're going to vote on it. And so this will likely go into effect around the January timeframe if it is voted through by the board of directors. So if you have opinions or questions, please reach out to your board. Those directors are your voice in the room, and they would love to hear from you to find out your questions, concerns, your support, whatever you feel is going to make all of us better as a professional community of people who serve all neighbors in their pursuit of financial freedom and entrepreneurism, and frankly, just the amazing feeling that comes from owning your little corner of the world. So what I would suggest is that while we work through the process of paperwork and lawyers and boards of directors and votes, that in the meantime, you just start doing what you already were doing. Just take it up 2 notches. Make sure that every consumer is educated. Make sure that every consumer knows exactly what you do and that they know what happens in that journey when they go from consumer to client. Because from that point, y'all, you go from being the realtor neighbor to being the realtor trusted advisor, who is the professional problem solver, who is invaluable in this, what is for most people their largest financial transaction. And I know that you guys are going to continue doing great things. And by the way, help me spread the word. If you have fellow realtors in your market or in your office who saw headlines and didn't know what was going on, bring them into the fold, because we have 1.422 million realtors out there, and all of us need to be engaged in this conversation so that we can create the best environment possible for the people we serve. In the meantime, subscribe to the podcast. Give me 5 stars because you totally should, and I'll see you next time up here from the rooftops.